The Phantom Toll Booth, your gateway to music and more from a Christian perspective, presents press conferences from the only Christian music festival that really matters, the Cornerstone Festival 2012. Sit back, relax, and you will hear from some of the most fascinating, intriguing, and sometimes controversial musicians, authors, and organizations around. Tollbooth.org. Slow down and have your change ready.
Thanks so much for joining us once again, ladies and gentlemen, at the Phantom Toll Booth Cornerstone 2012 press tent. Joining us right now, a man who needs no introduction. You're used to him doing the introducing, actually. Ladies and gentlemen, John and Michelle Thompson. With your moderator, if you want to necessarily accept that accolade at this point, Brian Smith.
Well, this is probably going to be the easiest and perhaps the most difficult press conference I've ever been involved with. When the book is written about Cornerstone, there's going to be a large section in it about the two people you see in front of you.
Oh, wow.
And what I'm going to do is I'll give you the opportunity to, if you want to talk about music, fantastic. But other than that, I'm going to get out of the way and let you talk about Cornerstone memories.
And I would say, I would also, if anybody has any questions, I would love to answer anything. I mean, my kids say, my mind is sort of just full of useless information, but if there's one corner of the universe that some of it is useful, it's here. So I need to make it useful because it's soon to be completely, I guess, irrelevant. So if anybody has any questions, then interrupt me. But as far as our history with Cornerstone, as far as the band goes, the Wayside, it's really, the band is very, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Cornerstone. Before we were called the Wayside, I had a band called Vague, and she became one of the backup singers, and we, my buddy Rob and I actually played after, like, we would be inspired by the music we heard at Cornerstone. I was 13, almost 14 at the first Cornerstone, and I saw the 77s play on main stage, and that was what sealed the deal that I had to be involved somehow. And of course I wanted to be in a band, but I wasn't going to take a no for an answer when it came to somehow being involved in this community. So we started our band when we were too young to drive to our gigs, and my dad had to drive us and stuff. And then I think that we entered the new band showcase, and actually the first recordings we ever did were just so that we would have something to enter the new band showcase. There was actually 2 tapes that we did. And if it wasn't for the fact that there was a Cornerstone new band showcase, then I don't think we would have gotten around to doing that. And we pulled favors, had friends help us to record these things. And I remember the deadline was a Monday morning at 10 o'clock at an office for a record company called Wonderland Records that was in Elgin, I think, or somewhere. And Randy Schoaf, who has been practically like a member of the band for the last 15 years, he's always been mixing for us. You've seen him around and stuff. Randy helped me record those first tapes, and then we drove up to hand deliver them to the office that they had to be in just in time for the deadline. And I remember he was so tired because we worked all night recording that he was asleep in the passenger seat of my little Chevette, and his skull was knocking against the glass of the window, and I kept thinking it was going to bust the window open. And but we entered and we didn't make it. We failed, and then the next year we entered again, and we were chosen as an alternate. So if some other band couldn't make it, then we would be in.
That's probably because I wasn't in the band.
That's exactly right. And so the year that we were an alternate, again, we were called Vague back then. I also started True Tunes, and that was a Christian music store and a magazine and stuff. And I really launched it at Cornerstone. It opened technically about a month earlier, but really, for all intents and purposes, I built it through the community that gathered at Cornerstone. And so that year, my buddy Randy Kirkman, who was in a band called Mission of Mercy, later known as Yonder Boy, he had a PA, and he and I put a bunch of gear in a van, and we brought it, and we just had it sitting there. And then the first day, after the first day's sales, the music sales at the True Tunes booth, all of the proceeds went to support the festival. So I kept out just a small percentage to cover our overhead and gave the rest to the community. And the first day sales were really good. they were better than the festival had ever done for the whole event. And so I went to Henry Wong, who is the director, and I said, okay, Henry, you know, I have news and I have a request. And the news is the first day sales were like $60,000. You guys are going to make some good money at this, and I'm really excited about it. And he was floored. You know, like, he didn't even know what to say. And I said, my request is I brought this PA, and down the road there by that swine, there was a big swine sign, and it was a corral because this was a county fairgrounds up north of Chicago. And I said, there's some outlets over there by that swine sign. Would you mind if I just went over and set up a little PA and played this afternoon with my band? And he was like, dude, you can play wherever you want, you know, do whatever. So Randy and our band set up that day and played. And what's interesting also is that, you know, when you look back and you don't recognize all the different threads that are kind of coming together, but at the same time, Michelle had been singing in the band for a little bit, and I was crazy about her, but she was seeing this other guy, so we led worship together at church, and then she was practicing with the band, and so we went to play at this thing at Cornerstone, this what became kind of the impromptu stage later, this sort of just set up and play generator kind of thing. And that day, I also had this massive allergic reaction to penicillin for the first time in my life. So I was on a heavy dose of like prescription strength Benadryl. So I was pretty much wasted on Benadryl and almost incoherent and pretty miserable. And so I was sick. True Tunes was blowing up in front of my eyes in a good way. Like, it was way more successful than I had expected. And I had a chance to play with my band, and she was there. And so we played that afternoon, and then that was actually the first day that we ever kissed. So that all happened the same day. So within a month, we were engaged, and then we were married by the following Cornerstone. So I like to think that the heat and the malnutrition and the dehydration of Cornerstone helped me convince her that it was somehow a good idea to marry me. And that was back in 90 was the year of that, and then by 91, the first year that the festival was here, we were married. And then that year, our band did make the new band stage, which is the same year that Over the Rhine did, and John Austin, and Dietophobia, and it was a pretty cool year, us accepted, and it was about 190 degrees, and they didn't water down the dust, so we played the last day, and we were coughing up chunks of black stuff, and
Too much information.
TMI. Anyway, so yeah, I really don't. I'm pretty positive that the band would never have had a reason to keep existing if it hadn't been for this thread, because True Tunes kind of took off, and True Tunes was really the day job I tried to build for myself so that I could stay around music, but I didn't expect that to be my career. I thought music and ministry I was going to, you know, be a youth pastor or pastor, and I was going to do music and make records. And so instead, the music business side has become my career, and then the Wayside has always been the creative, cathartic outlet for me. And we've never stopped doing it, but the cast of characters that have supported us has changed. But really, it's always been about the two of us since about 93. In terms of where we played the REX tent, which was down over on the hill over there. We played the impromptu stage with Mike Knott one year, which was crazy. We played the new band stage. We played the gallery at Cornerstone 2000 at midnight, which was recorded for a very embarrassing live record. And then the gallery kind of became our home. Some years we would play 3-4 times, leading worship at the beach or whatever, and that was always a lot of fun, but it was also usually in addition to the other work that I did for the festival and for True Tunes and sponsors and stuff like that. So that's, I guess, is there anything I'm missing about, like, related to the band and Cornerstone?
Well, one interesting year, we were chosen by Larry Norman to be his band for main stage. And that was pretty crazy for me, just to be standing up there with him and his hair flowing in the breeze, and like we're the ones up there on the stage with him. That was an incredible moment. It was also kind of surreal that, like, the drummer of Stryper stole my mirror so he could do his hair.
I forgot about that.
That was weird. Something I never thought would happen.
No, yeah, that Larry thing was really cool and really special and really funny. Like, most Larry Norman stories involve something just completely bizarre, but we had talked about it for months, and at first, the festival wanted him to come with a band, but he didn't have one. And I said, well, you can have mine, and we kind of play roots rock stuff. We would do really well, and so we learned all of his material, and they let the fans vote on the set list, so they gave us like 15 songs, and our band at that point was really, really good players. And we really practiced, and we knew every Larry Norman song in about 2 or 3 different keys, and we were ready to go. And then we showed up at a rehearsal at a little church in Macomb, and he told us then that his brother's new wave alternative band from Sweden or something was also going to be joining us on a few songs, and he had a professional wrestler who kind of played guitar and another guy from Indiana. I was like, what? So there's this carnival of musicians showing up to be the band, and he said, well, John, it's a big stage. We need a lot of people to fill that stage. I said, that's what we have a PA for, Larry. We don't really need to have 17 guitar players. But little did we know that would be, as far as I know, the last full band show that Larry did in North America. I think he did a show in Europe after that, but really special. I think that he was trying his best to kind of reach out and connect with some folks that he was estranged from, and I was happy to be a part of that. He came after the show. One of my favorite, and there's a picture I posted on the Facebook wall of him with the crowd, like it's his back and you see the crowd, and he's playing my guitar, and it was funny because he came to me in the middle of the set and he's like, John, I'm going to do a song. I need your guitar. And it was very like almost medieval, this hand me your guitar. And I handed him my guitar and it was just really fun. And he did song for a small circle of friends just by himself. And so that was really cool. And then after the show, he came and he was so excited about it. He said, John, we gotta go on the road and do a tour. He was like, let's do it. I got this guy and this guy. And I said, let's try one more show, like Chicago. Let's play one more show, and then we'll talk about what's after that. And we never did get to do that other show, which is disappointing. But yeah, that's definitely a highlight. So I guess in addition to the Wayside stuff, my role with the festival was that True Tunes was birthed here, and then True Tunes, it was a mutually kind of symbiotic relationship where True Tunes would promote Cornerstone throughout the year, and then Cornerstone would promote True Tunes, and it was, I think, a very equitable type of deal. And so some of the things that we were involved in was the gallery stage and kind of starting that, and having a voice in sometimes bringing artists that the festival and people hadn't heard of. I remember kind of going out on a limb and begging them to try this band Burlap to Cashmere, and everybody loved it, and so that kind of made my cred go up a little bit more. And then a few years later, The Waiting was another one that had a great run of Cornerstone shows. My favorite, though, was when I called John Herron, and it was really late in the booking process, and I had just seen Robert Randolph and the Family Band at House of Blues in Chicago, and I said, we have got to get, and I talked to Robert, and I told him about Cornerstone, and they'd have to do it for less money than they usually got, but he was excited about it, and that night was just, what was ironic about was that my buddy Brian Healy from a band called Dead Artist Syndrome, he always put together friends to be in his band, and he asked me to be, I can't remember if it was keyboards or guitar in Dead Art. Was it keyboards? I played in Dead Artist Syndrome a couple times out here too, and of course the night that he was playing the Midnight Encore was the same night that Robert Randolph was playing. So I had to go over to the gallery and introduce Robert Randolph, and I went way over the top. It was the most, like, how I get so enthusiastic and stuff. So I was just so excited. I knew that everybody was going to love this guy. But as soon as I introduced him, I had to get on a golf cart with a couple of flashlights and race because they were set up and ready to play as soon as I walked up on stage. So I walk up and bam, I play the Dead Artist Syndrome set, and as soon as I'm done, I had somebody to pack up my stuff, and I ran back over and I saw the last couple songs, and people were standing on their chairs and the whole stage was shaking, and it was everything I wanted it to be, but I missed most of that show. So then I worked after True Tunes. That was kind of through the 90s, and then I actually joined the staff, and I was full-time staff with Cornerstone from 2000 to about 2003 or 4. And I managed all the sponsorships, and when we started getting the video wall, and it's kind of chaotic to manage all of the things that you got to do for those ads that would play on the wall, and making sure sponsors get what they need so that they'll feel good about investing money, and sometimes I would be like a press liaison. So if somebody from CNN or somebody came, I would tour them around and show them what was what, and that was really fun working kind of behind the scenes. I think my favorite accomplishment there was the 20th and the 25th birthday bash. That was kind of a brainchild that John Heron and I had, and I was, especially the 20th one, that was really fun and really crazy and hard to pull off, all those moving parts. I mean, I just went way too elaborate with trying to have 3 sections of the stage and video clips between each band, and but it worked, and it was really fun. So and I think my favorite thing about that year was that, not my favorite, but another funny story some of you might not have heard, is that Bono sent a video for us to play on the video screen, a happy birthday video, which was really cool. And Steve Taylor helped to pull that together. And so the DVD, though, was, hard to get my hands on. It was being sent, and I was staying at the hotel in town. And so the radios, we all would communicate out here on radio. So one day my radio starts squawking, and someone says, "John, they called from the hotel, and the video from Bono is at the hotel." So I was like, okay, thanks. So I got to get out to Macomb and pick up that video and get back, or send somebody else to do it. Well, some kids or people, whenever anybody talks on the radio, you can kind of if you're standing next to somebody with a radio, you'll hear something, right, on the radio. And so some people, I don't even know, it could have been a dozen people, just heard Bono, Hotel, Macomb, and from like 10:30 in the morning on, I had people coming up to me, people that were friends of mine, going, "Okay, where's Bono?" And I was like, "He's not here, man." He's like, "No, John, it's me. Like, come on, where is he?" I'm like, I promise you, Bono is not here. And all day long, I'm telling people, Bono is not here. Bono is not here. Bono is not here. But it just grew throughout the day. And then I thought, man, we did all this work for this cool party for the 20, and they're going to be let down that all I have is a video from Bono. But I got a video from Bono. And so it was really funny. And then we had the transportation van coming through, and the windows are shady, and I'm sitting in the passenger seat, and I got my big old sunglasses on, and somebody sees the van, and they see me, and they just assume Bono's in the back of the van, and they start knocking on the glass and stuff. It was like, Bono is not here. And I've even heard, since then, I've heard people say, "I heard Bono came one year." So, that's pretty funny. As far as we know, Bono never came. Anybody have any questions about anything?
I do.
Yeah.
Actually, you have to come to the microphone in order to ask the question. So while you're coming to the microphone, come on. While you're coming to the microphone, I will ask my question.
Okay.
Who really is your favorite band?
Dude, I reject the premise of the question. I have rejected the premise of that question for Michelle Thompson is my favorite band. Yeah.
Safest?
No, it's like, what's your favorite color? I mean, at some point you get too old to really answer that, hopefully. I will say, and it's no secret, that to me, what happened when the guys got together to form the Lost Dogs was they created a really, really important gathering of players, that were from some of the most important bands. So the Lost Dogs and the various parties represented there are all my favorites in the whole world. And then also Charlie Peacock and Steve Taylor and Glenn Kaiser. Those three probably had a bigger influence on me than anybody else, not just in terms of their music, but it's like, Glenn, you had this spiritual intensity and this passion for discipleship and community, and I got to know him off-site, and I saw he's exactly the same person as he is on-site. So Glenn has and continues to be a huge, huge hero and mentor to me in that way. Charlie was the artist's artist. Back in the day when he would bring his bands, there was a level of professionalism and skill on display with a Charlie Peacock show that a lot of us hadn't seen before. But he also transitioned into doing music business and production and songwriting in a way that was very inspiring to me. Steve Taylor, great performer, great communicator, and then also doing films and stuff. So those three have been hugely influential. And then Michael Knott, has been a kind of Michael Knott and Mike Pritzel with the Violet Burning and the Prayer Chain guys, and there was a whole lot of cool alternative music that I loved. Harry Gore, who's walking down there, is definitely one of my all-time favorite Cornerstone artists. And I'll tell you why I say that about Harry, and I'm not kidding. Harry has never been paid that I could probably imagine, but he's found a way out here. And sometimes he'd show up and I'd say, "How'd you get here this year?" And he'd go, "Oh, I found a Greyhound," or "I hitchhiked," or whatever it took to get here. And he'd sit out here in the hot sun and play for tips while people are eating funnel cakes, and except for this year. Yeah, it's too much this year. But Harry's just a great personification of the people who this was not about getting a record deal or selling a bunch of CDs or whatever. He really comes as a servant to people, and that's the one of those intangibles that I think. So yeah, I reject the premise of that. But Terry Taylor, Mike Rowe, it's all those people I'm obsessed with are all my favorites in the whole world. And then what was your question?
I was only partially kidding, but I would like to know, what are we doing for the 30th anniversary?
The 30th, yeah, it's time to start planning that, isn't it? So that would be next summer. I think one of the most commonly asked questions of me this week has been, is this really fill in the blank? Like, they're going to do something, right? And I don't want people to think that this is some kind of a trick, or that they're going to just say, oh, surprise, we're back, next year. I don't expect there to be anything, but I also know that we serve a really fascinating God that makes very unlikely things happen from very unlikely places and people, just like Cornerstone. So I don't know, but I will say this, that if there's no actual physical gathering, then I expect a lot of us next year will be virtually gathering one way or another to kind of console each other and to celebrate and to have fun. And if you live in Nashville or anywhere near Nashville, we'll probably actually have a 4th of July / birthday party, because my birthday has always been wrapped up in Cornerstone since I was 13 years old. So maybe if you're in Nashville, maybe you can come to our house. And
Birthday's today.
Yeah, my birthday is today. Thank you.
You busted my bubble. We were going to sing when you were done.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you.
Question mark?
Happy birthday to you.
To you?
Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have a song. Who came up with the idea of the gallery stage, and was it meant to originally be a folk stage, or because there's been some pretty heavy bands up there?
Yeah. Well, here's my recollection of it, and you probably could ask a few other people who were part of the same thing, and they might remember it differently. So I'll say that caveat. But there had been, back in the earlier days of the festival, what they called an adult contemporary stage, which was the surefire best way to keep anybody cool from ever going there. And it wasn't bad music at all. It was actually really good singer-songwriters, and Jeff Johnson was a part of it, and the music was really good. It was not what I thought adult contemporary music. To me, that was Lionel Richie and stuff like that. So I was never really into that. Then it kind of morphed into the acoustic stage, and the first year, I can't remember if it was the first or second year that we were down here, there was the acoustic stage. But then True Tunes kind of got going, and we had a little bit more of a budget, and I wanted to do something that we could really brand and we could really say, because True Tunes had a different, like my buddy Doug Van Pelt had HM, and they had a real clear focus on hard music, metal. Back then it was Heaven's Metal. So he had a good brand for that, and True Tunes covered that, but we also covered singer-songwriter stuff and Mark Hurd, and we also covered the Violet Burning and the alternative bands and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to have a venue that was more like a club and less like what the encore stages or the main stage was. So something where you could sit and, chill and really process and absorb great music that would be everything from Ballydowse and The Crossing to Burlap to Kashmir to Jan Christ doing straight folk kind of music. And so I talked to Henry and I just said, I would like to sponsor that, and I can give you some money to help make it a little bit bigger. And I want to put a big True Tunes banner up. So if you find old pictures, there was always True Tunes everywhere because I was using it to try and brand True Tunes. And I think that the first year that True Tunes sponsored the gallery stage, one of the artists we booked was Phil Keggy, which I'm thinking Phil with his acoustic guitar doing the cool, amazing stuff that he does. But he shows up with just two guys, just a drummer and a bass player, Well, it turns out it's just basically glass harp, and it's like this epic cream kind of hard rock blues thing that completely blew everybody's mind. And that made us realize, we can take this thing pretty far. We don't have to be limited to just the acoustic thing. And then a couple of years later, because of that, another acoustic stage sprung up that was purely acoustic. So the gallery was always this kind of middle ground of eclectic stuff that I don't know. I told somebody the other day, honestly, I just did what I wanted to do because I wanted to sit there myself and just enjoy it, and so it was very much driven by what me and my friends thought was cool, and turns out other people liked it, so it wasn't really all that master planny, and it was a smaller part of the overall event too. Is that an answer? So that was a lot of words anyway. Yeah.
Excuse me, I hail from the bastion of conservatism, Eureka, Illinois.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I don't know, have you been to the Reagan Museum?
I don't know.
I invite you to come with me. I've got an extra helmet, and my Triumph is ready to go. But
Cool.
yeah, because I neglected to bring my copy of Raised by Wolves, I believe was yours. Yeah, great archive of, just for those who aren't really familiar with the roots and the beginning of Jesus music and Christian rock and everything. True Tunes was really a door, that opened. I came out here with my buddy. The first year was '91. And we spent a lot of time around the campfire, avoiding the seminars and reading our True Tunes news and catching up on music and everything. And so my John Austin and Embarrassing Young tape is completely played out. And anyways, are there other writings that you've done? Do you have other books out there?
Good question. I wrote a couple of little books for kids publisher. I wrote a section for one of the Cornerstone Press books called More Like the Master that's actually, I still think, a really good collection of essays about Christians in music. And it's funny, that was at least 12, 15 years ago, I think. And my chapter was called Independence versus Codependence, Why Not to Sign a Record Deal. That was my contribution to that book. And I think everything I said in that I still stand by. I've had a hard time I've been talking about doing several books with several publishers, but it's really difficult. They're facing the same kind of thing that a lot of the music industry is, where they're really reluctant to spend any money until they have a sure thing. And I'd like to do one on my own and just self-publish it, but here's the truth. In order to make ends meet, I've been writing, but I've written almost 1,000 addiction recovery articles in the last 2 years, which I'm proud to have helped, do that, but that takes a lot of time, and I'm at 970, I think, this week. So by the end of July, I'll cross the 1,000 article mark, and it's about 800,000 words. So that's what I've been writing the last couple of years. I'd like to get something more creative than that.
Do you have anything on Facebook?
Oh yeah, well,
I mean, as far as the addiction to.
Oh, the addiction to I have written about internet addiction, at least, not specifically Facebook. But I have, what's really cool is the last year I've been writing about twice a month for a blog called thinkchristian.net, and I've reviewed mostly mainstream music. I just did the Beach Boys, that'll be coming out soon, which is a fantastic record. Did some films, some film reviews, about 2 things a month for them, which has been awesome, and I will plan to keep doing that. I just did one actually that I wrote here this week, and it posted yesterday. So if everybody could check that out and then actually comment on the page so that people know that you're reading, that would be helpful. And then Christianity Today has had me do 2 articles in the last month. One was about Petra, the 25th. It was like the 25th anniversary of More Power to You and the 30th of This Means War, right? Yeah. And so they had me do an article about that, and then they had me do a Goodnight Cornerstone article, which I've been really overwhelmed with the response to. And I would love for Cornerstone fans to comment on that article to show the regular church, how important this event is. And I'm just if I can afford the time, I'd love to write more, because I feel like there's not the kind of vehicle that True Tunes was to help people discover artists like Vigilantes of Love. It's hard to find now. We're so fragmented, and we need filters that can help us find the stuff we're passionate about. And I'm hoping I can figure out a way to do it, but honestly, just kind of keeping up with the demands of life makes it difficult. I would also like to update Raised by Wolves, fix a few things that were wrong, add in about 30% of the book that was cut out by the publisher. But again, it just takes a lot of time. So hopefully there will be probably in my case, it'll be a 13.5 year anniversary director's cut or something like that, because I missed the 10-year mark, but that's my style. That's how I roll. And most of the pictures in that book were from Cornerstone too, which was Dinah Kotoff did great photos. So thank you for caring about what I write. I appreciate it.